Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Trump Trolls Trump. You know the drill by now. There is so much to mock in the Trump regime. You know, the suck-ups, the sycophants, the enablers, and of course, Donald himself, that we have to have a whole separate show simply so we can do that. It has now been 320 days, which seems remarkable, unlikely, and terrific, since Inauguration Day, and we are taking a look back at week 45. Remember the golden age? Well, it's finally here, much like Infrastructure Week. It's finally happening. The problem, though, is that Donald can't stay awake long enough to enjoy all of it. So let's take a step back, though, and start with Donald's FBI director, Kash Patel. Patel is literally a man who exemplifies the meaning of the term in over his head. The guy is so incredibly incompetent and unqualified. It must be painful to him, which is good. Anyway, there was a story this week that rocked the very agency Patel purports to lead. It was a scandal of epic proportions. Well, actually, that's not true. It was a scandal of tiny proportions, actually, because it had to do with a wardrobe malfunction. Anyway, the little guy had a meltdown over a jacket. And by little guy, I'm not commenting on his size. I'm commenting on his emotional depth and maturity. Anyway, the New Republic reports that back in September, quote, when Patel landed in Utah to investigate the murder of Charlie Kirk, he refused to exit the plane until someone fetched him a medium-sized FBI jacket, unquote. He essentially was throwing a fit about the fact that he didn't have a jacket that fit him. Why? Well, because he forgot to bring one, when he should have been helping his agents on the ground investigate a high-profile assassination. The New Republic wrote further, quote, Patel ended up taking a female agent's jacket. He then began to complain that that jacket didn't have the proper patches on it, and he refused to leave the plane once again until SWAT team members gave him their patches, unquote. See, tiny man, just a tiny, tiny man. This week, the FBI director went on Fox State Television, Laura Ingram's show, to defend his behavior, which is sort of the definition of indefensible behavior. So let's see what Patel had to say.
They're saying, he refused to get off the plane in Utah after Charlie Kirk's assassination because he wanted a better fitting FBI raid jacket. Is that true? And does fashion really make the man, Kash?
It's 100% false. As you know, look, Laura, sadly, I was at 9/11 at Ground Zero in New York City on 9/11 because I was a White House representative honoring those victims. These people are worried about what I was wearing and what patches I was wearing. I was honoring my men and women at the FBI. One of my agents handed me a jacket and said, hey, boss, you should probably wear this. We're going into the command center. I said I'd be honored to wear that. And then another one handed me the SWAT team badge of the unit that was protecting the area where Charlie was assassinated. I wore that with pride. These people can talk about my appearances all they want, but look at the results. The FBI, this FBI, my FBI, the one that Dan and I are building here under President Trump, is succeeding in ways that no FBI has ever done so before. So the institutionalists and the anonymous reporters from the swamp DC bureaucracy are the ones we are crushing. And that's how I know we're winning.
Remind me again, who's in charge of all three branches of government before you start talking about the DC swamp bureaucracy of which you little man, are a part. Also, what does September 11th have to do with anything? Leave that out of your fucking mouth. All right, let's move on to what's happening with the rest of Donald's crack team. On Tuesday, he held another North Korea-style cabinet meeting with all of his handpicked, made-for-cable TV rejects. And yes, of course, because this is part of their job description, they lined up to kiss his ring. His ring? More like his ass. Anyway, before the meeting began, Donald had a few choice words for what he continues to refer to as the fake news media, which is getting so boring, no wonder he can't stay awake anymore. Because he's getting really tired of hearing questions such as, is Donald's health okay? Is he as sharp as he used to be? Well, I have a problem with that question because it's based on the premise that Donald was ever sharp. But We'll let that slide for the moment. Is Donald sliding a little bit is another question, which again is based on a false premise that he hasn't already slid. And finally, is something wrong with Donald? Which, see, premise. There's always been something wrong with Donald. But I get it. There are more and more reasons to be asking such questions, and Donald has decided to open this cabinet meeting by addressing those concerns himself, because we know he's all about transparency and honesty and being upfront with the American people. So let's hear what he had to say.
But you always find something new, like, is he in good health? Biden was great, but is Trump in good health? I sit here, I do 4 news conferences a day. I ask questions from very intelligent lunatics, you people. And I give the right answers. There's never a scandal, there's never a problem. I give you answers that solve your little problems. You go back and you can't find anything, but you do stories about Biden was in wonderful health. The guy didn't do a news conference for 8 months. If I go one day, I had one day where I didn't do a news conference, there's something wrong with the president. You people are crazy. I'll let you know when there's something wrong. There will be someday. That's going to happen to all of us. But right now, I think I'm sharper than I was 25 years ago, but who the hell does?
I know. Anyway, yeah, he'll let us know. He lets us know every day that something is seriously wrong with that maniac. After that spiel, Donald went back. First of all, calling other people maniacs, especially just reporters doing their jobs and asking questions, is what they call a tell. Anyway, Donald went back to his usual story as evidence that he is sharper than ever, telling us about his cognitive assessment test. He took it a lot for reasons that really beg the question, why? But anyway, he aced it. It was very hard. It is, if you don't know what camels, lions, and rhinoceroses look like. It is a very hard test. Anyway, we've heard this 1,000 times since 2017 when he first took the Montreal Cognitive Assessment. This is nothing to brag about, so we're going to skip ahead. A little later in the meeting, when Marco Rubio began to tell us how motivated his boss is, we see Donald doing absolutely everything in his tiny bit of power to stay awake. The man next to him is practically, well, I'm not going to say what I was going to say. He's practically got his tongue down Donald's throat on live television, and no matter how hard Donald tries, even Marco Rubio can't help him keep his eyes open. It's kind of incredible, and yet it's just another day ending in Y, isn't it?
Everything this president does is driven by the American people. Whether you don't have to agree with the actual move, but understand the motivation. The motivation is always you, the American people, and what's good for you, for your family, for the country, and for our economy. But the president is also committed to peace in a way that all of us have seen. He achieved in Gaza, and he does it, by the way, not just because he hates war and he thinks wars are a waste of money and lives, but because he's the only leader in the world that can. No other leader in the world could have pulled off what happened in Gaza. Every day is a challenge, but it's been driven personally by the president. It's the reason why we're involved in this whole Ukraine-Russia conflict. That's not our war. It's not the president's war. This war started, it never would have happened if you'd been president. But this war is going on, and the president is trying to end it, not because, listen, we got a million things to focus on in the world as a country, but he's the only leader in the world that can help end it. And that's why
Hey, I'm sucking up to you. I'm trying really hard to suck up to you so you stay awake. Can you please open your eyes? Otherwise, I'm not going to get credit for this. Good try, Marco. So many lies. The idea that Donald hates war is hysterical. He literally renamed, unconstitutionally, but still, the Department of Defense, the Department of War. And last I checked, things are not going swimmingly in Gaza. But this is a sign of just how bad things are. Donald lives for attention and compliments and having a camera trained on his charming little face. And yet, nothing Marco Rubio said was enough to keep him conscious. So some of Donald's other cronies in his inner circle also seem to be sleepwalking. Take, for instance, Donald's pick for National Economic Council Director, Kevin Hassett, who challenges the notion that 0 is the lowest IQ score. Hassett went on Fox Day TV this Thursday and ran headlong into Fox's own polling, which shows that voters say the economy is only fair or poor. Now, he tried desperately to spin it, and this time he had a new scapegoat. And I think that he should probably talk to Donald about this, because mentioning Joe Biden just isn't working anymore. So Hassett claimed that the numbers look bad, not because of reality, but because everyone is still in a bad mood because of the so-called Democrats shutdown, which was, of course, the Republicans shutdown.
Take a look at a couple more polls. This one shows, on a scale of excellent, good, only fair, or poor, how would you rate economic conditions today? And if you combine only fair and poor, you get 76% on that poll. And then we have who is more responsible for current economic conditions, President Trump or President Biden. And we have Trump at 62%. So, I know that we've heard from you, we've heard from Scott Bessent saying that things are going to feel very different in the beginning of the year. And everybody hopes that that's absolutely accurate. And we look forward to that. But, what would you say to people who are answering the survey that way, Kevin?
Right. Well, one of the things that we've seen and we've studied over the last couple of weeks is that when there's a government shutdown, then the things that we economists call the soft data, the survey data, tend to really, really tank because everyone's in a terrible mood because Washington can't work and the government shut down and they're worried about how bad it's going to be.
Yes, typically when there's a government shutdown, people blame the people running the government. Just a quick tip, Kevin. The other thing about that, though, is, and they of course didn't mention this, but only 4% of Americans say that the economy is excellent, and every single person among that 4% is in the Trump regime. Just so you're aware. There's more, of course, having to do with wars against reality. White House Press Secretary Eva Braun. I'm so close. Karoline Leavitt, was caught this week accidentally telling the truth, which she hates doing. Leavitt was speaking to the White House press corps about one of her favorite topics, which is one of Donald's favorite topics, fake news. But she mistakenly revealed what we all know to be true. She was more honest in this 10-second clip than she has been in her very short life.
But overwhelmingly, the fake news that we see pumped out of this building on a day-to-day basis, it's honestly overwhelming to keep up with it all.
Yes, that building, meaning the White House, specifically the Oval Office, the fake news coming out of the Trump regime is indeed overwhelming, and somebody needs a break. I think Karoline Leavitt deserves to retire because it is just too much for even a sycophantic psychopath Nazi like her to take. This week, the Trump regime officially proposed weakening federal fuel economy and emissions rules, which sounds like a great idea as the climate catastrophe worsens every day. They're rolling back stricter standards set under the Biden administration and allowing cars and trucks to burn more gas through 2031. I wonder who that benefits. This is a fascinating choice during record-breaking climate change. Again, as I said, every day things get worse in terms of the climate and the future of the planet. Enter former MTV Road Rules all-star guy, Sean Duffy, who it still surprises me, even though nothing should. He's Secretary of Transportation, I guess because he was on a show about cars or something. Anyway, he showed up on CNBC to defend the fuel standards rollback. Duffy announced on live TV how excited he is to be moving the country backward. I challenge you to follow his logic here.
Also, I think if you're building a car, developing a car that Joe Biden or Pete Buttigieg wanted you to build, that's different than market demand. I want the market to decide what kind of EV I should offer. What kind of vehicles do the American consumers want to buy? This rule will actually allow you to bring back the 1970s station wagon, maybe a little wood paneling on the side, Phil. We can bring back choice to consumers. So yeah, the minivan's awesome, but maybe the station wagon is cool too.
Okay. Thankfully, we're almost out of time, so I don't have to detangle that mass of spaghetti in what's his name's brain, because I don't have the patience. And there's so much else we just didn't have time to get to. For instance, we could have talked about the fact that during this week's cabinet soporific, Secretary of Homeland Security and puppy murderer Kristi Noem thanked Donald for his tireless efforts to combat the weather. This is her quote. "You made it through the hurricane season without a hurricane. You kept the hurricanes away. We appreciate that," unquote. Now, I guess we should be grateful there weren't any hurricanes, because Donald has been known to threaten them with nuclear weapons. So, yeah, that works. And I thought it was Democrats, by the way, who control the weather. But clearly Noem did not get that memo. It was also revealed this week that Health and Human Services Secretary Robert Kennedy is a poet. Yes, he texted journalist and alleged ex-girlfriend Olivia Nuzzi about lewd sex acts in salacious poems that are so disgusting I refuse to read them out loud, and I refuse to read them at all. If you want to see them, if you are braver than I am, or you have a higher pain threshold than I do, you can search for them on your own, but be warned, after reading them, you may never be able to eat again. So then we come to bootlicking coward and Texas Senator Ted Cruz, who stood up in front of Donald this week and said, quote, "I think objectively on the merits, the case can be made that there's never been a president who has had a greater positive impact on the children of America than you have," unquote. Well, I think it depends on what your meaning of positive is. If by positive, you mean there's never been a president who's made children hungrier and more vulnerable to easily treated and preventable communicable diseases that can kill them, then I agree wholeheartedly. That's true. And also, fuck you, Ted Cruz. In Donald's disastrous cabinet meeting, Secretary of Defense Hegseth's name was misspelled with an extra S before secretary. SS, that sounds like it tracks to me. Either that or his nameplate was slurring because it drinks too much. There's so much more. But before we close, I want to check in again on that very thirsty man whom we just discussed, Pete Hegseth. He's staring down possible war crime charges for the 2 tap bombings of fishing boats off the coast of Venezuela. At first, he bragged that he was the guy who made the call because, he's sort of in charge of everything other than, of course, the commander-in-chief. And now he's saying that it was all Admiral Mitch Bradley's fault. Yes, it was the admiral who made the final decision. Hegseth said he made the correct decision and he stands by him, but is refusing himself to take responsibility. So, it's very easy to stab somebody in the back when you're already standing behind them. Well done. And even with all of this going on, Hegseth still found time for one of America's hardest hitting interviews. I'm not entirely sure how we made it through this one, because you need to be prepared to show up for the wife of Little Nazi, Stephen Miller's podcast. Yes, that would be Katie Miller, the Katie Miller podcast, which, just shows you how fearless Hegseth is to have all of those softballs lobbed at him. She actually did ask him a fairly profound question. If you could invite anyone in all of history, living or dead, to a dinner party, who would his 3 guests be? I'm not entirely sure you're going to be able to guess who the 3 people are, but take a guess and then see if you're right.
If you could host a dinner party with 3 people dead or alive, who's coming to the table and what are you eating?
Oh my goodness. Go ahead, babe. You go.
Me go?
Yeah.
Well, you pick one and I'll pick one.
No, I mean, I think you've, well, at this point, I think it would be President Trump, Vladimir Putin, and Zelensky. See what happens.
See what happens. What are we eating?
Ooh, what are we? No comment on that. Whatever the steaks, just whatever the president wants, we'll see what happens. There'd be a dinner for peace.
It would be steaks, well done, French fries.
Done. And Russian dressing.
Oh, wow. Clever. Or you can eat shit. That would be good. I'm a little surprised. I thought he was either going to say Donald, Hitler, and Mussolini, or 3 Donalds. But what do I know? I think, Pete, you should have gone with the latter, and now you might be in a little bit of trouble. But knowing you, you will always find a way to be a bigger suck-up and sycophant. So I'm looking forward to that. And that does it for us. And we will be back next week because of people like Pete Hegseth and Kash Patel and Karoline Leavitt and all of the losers and kiss asses with which Donald surrounds himself. So thank you so much for being here. We will be back next week, as I just mentioned. Mockery is our superpower, and we must use it at every opportunity. So please, if you enjoy the video, share it with friends and especially enemies just for fun. And if you believe in our mission, please subscribe to the Mary Trump Media YouTube channel. Thanks.